Brandon home. Readjusting well. And Brother Barker will be conducting tonight. We'll have an opening song. I Know My Redeemer Lives. It's in 136 in your hymn book. I'd like to welcome thank our pianist, Sister Barker, and our chorister, Sister Colin, for playing the music tonight. Sister Colin will have an opening song.
Sentence gives. all thy many blessings. We're especially thankful for this opportunity we have to meet together and to hear of Brandon's experiences on his mission. We thank thee for him and for his willingness to serve. We're thankful that he is back here with us, and we ask you to bless him as he plans those things onward and upward in his life, that he'll be guided by thee into those things that thou would have him do. We thank thee for the missionaries throughout the world, and we ask you to bless them all with health and strength. Bless them that they will be guided by thee and led to those who are seeking. We ask thee to be with us this evening. Bless Brandon, especially, that he'll be able to say those things he wants to say, and that thy Spirit will be here with us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Sister Erickson. Well, I guess we might as well just make this short and sweet. So we'll turn the time over to Brandon, and he can enlighten us with his experiences, and we can all share in them, and maybe he'll even be funny with one another. Brandon, it's yours.
All right. Well, I can talk louder than the mic, so I'm just going to talk. Tonight's going to be really informal. Kind of. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that we're pretty much just going to go through, and I've got some stories and stuff relating to some of the pictures that I'll tell, but mostly it's just about what I've been up to the past 2 years. And if you have any questions, anything about anything in the picture, or just experiences that I bring up, feel free to just raise your hand and ask them. I used to tell people, I've told people all the time, I love questions, any kind of questions. So ask away, ask to your heart's desire. So, Dad, you are? Okay. Yep. All right. That's me, in case you couldn't tell. One thing I really loved about Florida was that every sunset was gorgeous. It was just absolutely beautiful. And I served about 1.5 years of my mission right on the coast, and so I got to see the sunsets right on the ocean. It was just absolutely breathtaking. So you'll probably see quite a few sunset pictures in here because I like to take pictures of them. So these first couple slides, Dad, you want to go ahead? Next one. First couple slides are just talking about roughly Tampa, Florida. Some of the things that are there, a little bit about Tampa. My mission covered just a couple little ways above Tampa, about out to the middle of the state, down to about Fort Myers, a little bit past Fort Myers actually. So it's basically the western half of the peninsula. I don't know how many square miles or anything like that, but one of my areas, St. Petersburg, my first area, I served there for 6 months. That county, Pinellas County, has 1.1 million people just in that county. So that county alone has more people in it than the state of Montana does. I thought that was pretty interesting. And it was really crazy to come from, Stevensville, Montana, used to driving on dirt roads a lot and loving it, to St. Petersburg, this pretty much the most densely populated area in the Florida Tampa Mission. It was quite the experience. First time I drove in Florida was across the bridge that crossed the Tampa Bay. And needless to say, I don't think my knuckles regained their color for a couple days after that. I was clutching that wheel so tightly. It was really scary, but luckily I got used to it. And another thing I loved about Florida was just the environment. I loved just everything was green. Notice that right as soon as I stepped off the plane in September, it was like this. It was just gorgeous, green everywhere. And so I love taking pictures of the forest scenes like this, where it didn't look like mankind has even touched it, because that's still a lot of Florida looks like that right there. This was in the middle of, kind of a city. It was a little park back in the back in there, and it's just gorgeous. I love it. And again, more forest. Another sunset. This one I took while I was actually, I had my companion take it while I was driving. I was like, I have to take a picture of that sunset. And so he snapped it, a couple of them, and this one was the best one. Okay, another thing in Florida, we biked a lot. At least the first part of my mission and the last part of my mission. The middle part I had a car all the time, so it wasn't as bad. But this is a common sight. This will sneak up on you. You notice how it's dark all at the bottom, then you have the white clouds up top. The storms would come in and literally like 5 minutes, you'd see them on the horizon, then bam, they'd hit you and you'd be soaking wet before you even realized it. And but it was just the contrast between, you know, below the clouds and above the clouds was just crazy to me. I'd never seen that here in Montana, and it was amazing. I got wet a lot on mission. But another gorgeous skyline. These are mostly pictures of skies because there's no mountains in Florida, so I couldn't take pictures of them, so I took pictures of the sky.
Tell them what you did with your wallet stuff when you saw it.
Oh, when the rain was coming, I always carried plastic bags, Ziploc bags or just grocery bags. And I carried one for my scriptures and then another one for all my like wallet and planner, everything like that. And I seal them all off and make them waterproof and just stuff them in my bag. That way if I got soaked, it wasn't the end of the world. Nothing, you know, my stuff was still safe. It was just me that got wet. So we there's some pictures in the photo album back there. But one time, me and my companion just got absolutely drenched on our way back to the apartment. So we're like, well, we're wet enough. So we threw some PJs on and went and just stood in the rain and got soaking wet. Just kind of played in it. It was lots of fun. But that was a common occurrence in Florida. Now this is called Bok Tower, B-O-K Tower. It was just gorgeous. It had lush gardens and everything around it. And that pond you see at the base of it had gorgeous, huge white swans that just swam over there. You could feed them and everything. It was just awesome. But this tower, I don't know the full story behind it, but the guy that built it just wanted to have a sanctuary, just wanted to have something beautiful to have people come and look at. And rumor was that you had to pay several thousands of dollars to go and see the top of the tower, which I thought was pretty crazy. But as you can see, it's very beautiful. I can only imagine what it was like on the inside. So.
Oh my God.
I saw some crazy vehicles in Florida. This guy had like 4 of these rocket motorcycle things. One looked like a spaceship and things like that, but it's interesting, the imagination that people have. No, that's on a main road, but it's not on the freeway. But he booked it. He was booking it. We were struggling to catch up. Member was giving us a ride home, and our bikes were in the back of his van, and we were struggling to catch up to him and take this picture. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was pretty sweet. And this, we just got done the state conference. We actually rode with an investigator over to state conference, and we pull out and we see some members standing right in front of this car taking pictures in this guy's lawn. And we're like, no way. So we go and check it out. This guy had built this car from the ground up into the original Batmobile. And I didn't put the picture on here, but the inside had all the gadgets, and they labeled the emergency bat turn lever and the bat ray and everything like that. This guy he put a lot of money into this, but it was so cool. I had to get a picture of it. There are a lot of people who like to go mudding in Florida. This is actually a smaller mud and truck, but this guy built this up I asked him, and it took him about 6 months to build it. But people just like driving through mud, I guess. There are some vehicles I saw with tires that are, as big as tractor tires out here, that are just huge tires, and they talk about how they still get stuck. And I'm like, well, if you're driving through a swamp, that tends to happen. But I asked this guy if he'd gotten stuck in this a lot, and he said, oh yeah, I get stuck a lot, but luckily my friend has one twice as big, so he just pulls me out, no problem. I'm like, wow, okay then. Sweet. So there's lots lots of different wildlife, lots of different animals in Florida. And of course, there are gators in Florida. I saw many of those.
Are they mean?
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't go. I saw people and heard people go swimming a lot in Florida. They'd go swimming in the rivers and the lakes. If I went back there, I'm not swimming in the rivers and lakes. I saw too many pictures and stories of alligators, and they're nothing to mess with. They're pretty vicious, actually, when they're hungry. When they're not hungry, they're all right, I guess. They have gorgeous birds. Gorgeous birds. The one on the left, I can't remember the exact name of the bird, but we had an investigator, had one about that size. But if you stood it like from the tail to the head, it probably stood about this tall. The tail is the longest part, but they're just gorgeous birds. We taught a couple investigators with one of these, and they would come to church oftentimes with bruises and big old welts and stuff like that from the bird. I'm like, ouch. And we had turtle rescue a lot. Turtles would cross the road. This is a tortoise, actually. It's a gopher tortoise, and they would cross the road a lot, and cars would hit them a lot. So whenever we saw one trying to cross the road, we'd stop and we'd go rescue it. But I found out later, after I performed a couple of these rescues, found out later that when you pick a turtle up, if you don't take it in a straight line the way it was facing, it'll turn around and go back. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of counterproductive. So it was so funny because you see a missionary out here just walking, just making sure to get an absolutely straight line. Put this thing in the bushes on the other side so it could go off and do its thing. But it would just, I'm sure it was a funny sight to somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if there's pictures on the internet somewhere of that. These birds are all over. They're called, somebody told me they were called water turkeys. But they swim like a fish. They swim like this in the water. And they're just, then they sit and they hold their wings out and dry out so they can fly. But they are all over. They just swim like little fish. It's crazy. And that is a baby alligator. Some members had, you'll see lots of pictures of snakes and stuff from this member's house. He had his own reptile business. He had about 150 snakes while I was there, 4 crocodiles, baby alligator, 17 baby crocodiles, many turtles, a lemur. He had a whole zoo in his backyard. It was crazy. So this is called the Florida earring. And yes, I did it, but I don't have pictures of it, unfortunately. But this elder did not want to do it. We talked him into it. So you can probably see on his face.
Yeah, he looks excited.
But all it is, the lizards, which are everywhere, the first time I walked down the street in Florida, these things were darting at my feet. I'm like, what is that? Like, I'm under attack or something. My man, he's like, they're just the lizards. It was weird, but it was fun catching them. But that snake is about 20 feet long. Its coils, probably about that big around, its body. I watched it eat a chicken at one point. I don't want to mess with it. But the member who had it, he's a huge guy. He has all these snakes and stuff like that, and he handles them. And whenever this snake lays eggs, they take the eggs and they incubate them and everything like that so they can hatch, right? Well, he said it takes like 8 guys to hold this snake down while they take the eggs. And he says he always pities the guy in the end, the tail, because he just gets thrown against the walls and thrown all over the place. Snakes are pretty strong. That is a ball python. It's a half albino, half spider, I believe, ball python. And he had bred it himself. It's not a very good picture of the whole body, so that's why they're called ball pythons, because they like to curl in balls. But it was a beautiful snake. So the next few slides are just kind of missionary life. This is outside of the building in Hudson. We just thought it'd be cool to take a picture on it. So starting off, of course, the Missionary Training Center, the MTC, wonderful experience. I remember my brother, I was sent a DVD of when he gave his fireside and he got his mission. And he gave this equation, I don't even remember this, that figured out how many prayers were said roughly on this, 2,000 square feet of land. something like that. It was pretty amazing. And while you're in the missionary training center, while you're on those grounds, you feel the power of those prayers. It is unlike any other place on earth. It's got a different feel to it than the temple, but it's along the same lines. It was just a wonderful experience. I learned tons from the MTC. Now, missionary life, since our families are all really far away, we substitute. This is my mission family. Far left, that's my grandpa. The next one over is my dad. Yeah, I'm going to go through and tell how they are related to me, then I'll go through and say why they are related to me. Then, of course, me. Then that is my 2 brothers, and then my son. I have 2 sons. But basically, whoever trains you is your father. And then whoever trains him is your grandfather, and so on and so forth. So the second one from the left trained the 3 in the middle, and then I trained Elder Roberts there on the end, the far right. So that is how we're related. And there's a couple, actually the next one. Those are my 2 sons. One on the left, Elder Roberts from California. One on the right, Elder Uvrard is from France. He's from Paris. It was pretty cool serving with him. I learned a little bit of French, but he never could teach me very much because I just couldn't get it, couldn't remember it. I was like, I'm speaking English. This is another picture of some more of my family. A lot of interesting elders on the mission. The one on crutches on the left actually was on crutches. He hurt his ankle in a basketball game the week before. And my trainer there in the middle, that pretty much sums up his personality right there. He felt like getting crutches and a helmet. So, and then that is my brother on the back of his son, which would make him my nephew. So, some more family there. And
Oh dear.
I don't know what to say about this picture.
What is he doing to his tongue?
He's just grabbing it. He just grabbed his tongue. It was kind of weird, but that's all right. It was cool. It was cool. Yeah. So this is me and Elder Roberts in front of Bach Tower. I made faces in most of these, so don't be surprised. Now, as you notice, the tire's a little flat. This was in Lake Wales. Lake Wales had actually where Bach Tower is. Bach Tower sits on top of the second highest point in Florida, which is only like 250, 275 feet above sea level. But it was quite a big hill for us on bikes because we lived at the top of it, as was the church, and the rest of our area was down off this hill. It was like a 45-degree angle, and it was like 150, 200 yards long. No, about 100. Anyways, we called the main street, we called it Spook Hill. And there's a lot go back to it, but we biked up it every day. Except for that day we had to walk up it. But these things happen frequently. Flat tires and stuff, that's all just part of the mission to learn how to do it. You also learn how to cut your own hair, because you're short of money. This is Elder White, and didn't want to get his clothes hairy, so he improvised.
With
Now I found this street in my last area. I was very happy. It was my favorite street. I couldn't find it, but I also have another picture of a Stevensville Avenue, spelled exactly the same way and everything. And a picture of me partway up the pole reaching for it, but I couldn't find it, unfortunately. So
It's over there in that photo album.
yeah, it's in the photo album. Just a random picture. My companion at this one, Elder Uvrard, the one from France, loved taking pictures of everything. So he would stop all the time and just take pictures. This is one of those moments. Mail is a blessing on the mission, but sometimes it's also a curse as well when you don't get any. But mail was a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. Now this is one of those days where it had been raining all day and we had an appointment, and this elder, he's my stepson because I was his second companion. I step trained him, so he's my stepson. And we waterproof our shoes, the leather waterproofing stuff, but he hadn't done that yet. So again, he improvised. he adapted and overcame the problem resulting in wet shoes. So,
Those
Now-
garbage bags?
what?
Are they garbage bags?
Yeah, they were just grocery bags that he just tied over
Ah.
his shoes. We went biking in it. It was interesting. Now, sometimes your companions can help you out a lot, or they can make things a bit challenging. But I learned something from every one of my companions. I had quite a few of them. I think they just couldn't stand me. Like, President kept me away from this guy. But it was a wonderful thing to be able to work with and live with these wonderful men who are called the same as I was to Florida, from all parts of the world. And that was one of the biggest blessings I had in my mission. I had a lot of amazing companions, a lot of amazing missionaries that I served with and that I served around. We weren't really fighting, it was just opposed. But missionaries have weird traditions as well. We like to burn stuff. Most of us are guys, 19 to 21, so that's kind of natural. This is me burning my tie at my 6-month mark. And at 6 months, you would burn a tie. And then at a year, you'd burn a shirt. And then at 18 months, burn a pair of pants. And then when you go home, you burn a full suit. Now, I didn't burn anything else. This is all I burned. But we had a lot of fun. Lighter fluid, ties. It was just a great combination.
You want to explain what's underneath that grill? Is that your apartment?
No, that is a member's apartment. We were working with him on that. So, these are a lot of pictures of people I worked with, people I served around. And at the end of every transfer, we tried to have a zone picture. And we like to do weird things. We didn't like just standing there and smiling, so we improvised. This is one of my favorite zones. It was the smallest, but it was my favorite. We became really good friends, all of us. But this is Elder Thompson, and before he came into the mission, I kept getting emails from my dad. Hey, is Elder Thompson there yet? Is Elder Thompson there yet? Because Elder Thompson's father served with my father in San Diego. They were companions. And Elder Thompson was called to the Florida Tampa mission. And when my dad found out about it, in his next email, that's all he could talk about. And so for the next couple transfers before he came out, I'd hear about Elder Thompson. I pretty much knew his life story before he even came out. So we became really good friends, though. Unfortunately, I was not able to serve with him. But he's a great missionary. This is St. Pete's Zone. Picture's a little dark, I'm sorry. But again, the many joys was the missionaries that I served around. Going to P-days, going to meetings and stuff was like it was a release, it was an escape. Because after all day, every day, walking around, it's just you and your companion, talking to people who have no clue what you do, no clue why you do it. And it was just nice to be able to go and to be with other missionaries, other people who were doing the exact same thing you were doing, knew exactly what you were going through and exactly what was happening at that time in your lives. So a lot of bonds were formed between us missionaries. I'm sure the missionaries that are here can attest to that. So now this is my first baptism. I couldn't find the mother right next to me. She was baptized about a month before that, and we worked with her. And her daughter, when they first started working with her mom, her daughter in the middle just wasn't interested at all. She's actually 13, and she was just like, I'm just gonna do my 13-year-old thing. And we became really close to this family. One of my favorites. Jennifer, there next to me, pretty much became one of the couple mission moms I had on my mission. Just a wonderful family. And I believe the next one is Deanna, the oldest daughter's baptism. So it's funny because Jennifer opened the door, just had no intention of joining the church. But my trainer and his companion at the time, when they knocked into it, she just, for some reason, she listened to him. In her mind, she said, if I find one thing that goes against what I believe, these guys aren't coming back. And, well, she was baptized, so she didn't find anything. But it's just amazing to see the change in that family. How the youngest daughter became interested, and the oldest daughter, one who's being baptized there, she actually lived up in Maine. And so she's finding out her mom's baptized in this church, then her little sister. She kept writing down and calling down, what is going on? What is this church you guys are joining? And then she asked them to send her a Book of Mormon so she could learn a little bit more. And she came down during Christmas of 2009, and we taught her a couple lessons, and she just soaked it up. And she went and was taught by the missionaries in Maine, then came back to Florida to be baptized. But she is absolutely amazing. She grabbed the gospel and she ran with it. And she's still going strong. She's actually going to Dixie State down in down in Utah, and she's just absolutely wonderful. That whole family's doing really well. So this is Frank Aguirre. He's got a King Jehovah shirt on. It was interesting, but he is a great guy. We had a lot of fun teaching him. He's originally a Spanish referral, but he spoke enough English that the sisters let us teach him, and I'm really glad that they did, because I learned a lot from him. It was wonderful. This is Kim, and I mentioned her in my talk on Sunday, but she did a complete 180 when she joined the gospel. When I first met her, she had a Mountain Dew bottle in her hand, and then a 2-liter on her four-wheeler as backup. She drank it like water. Well, she had a member friend that told her that Mountain Dew was against the word of wisdom, which we're like, well, we're not going to say anything because it was an addiction that she needed to overcome anyways. So she dropped it like that. She literally put it down and didn't touch it again. And it was so wonderful to be able to be a part of the Lord's hand in her life and helping her to recognize and accept the gospel. And her husband there actually is not a member, and he showed up in a full suit and everything, and we were quite impressed. So this is Joey Lorenzo on the left, and his mother, Esther Lorenzo. Joey actually just put in his papers. He's waiting on his call now. But we worked with him and his older brother, Orlando, and they are absolutely amazing. Joey from the start had no doubt, and once he started learning how to read and pray and use those together, he just took off. He's on fire. I don't know if he's missed very many Sundays in the almost year and a half since I worked with him. Just absolutely amazing. The Lord truly blessed us with being able to teach him and work with him. And there are amazing senior couples on the mission. This is Elder and Sister White from Provo, Utah, I believe. And we became very close to them. They had us over for dinner every week, and always amazing food, of course, but then again, as a missionary, all home-cooked meals are amazing. So anything that's not mac and cheese or ramen noodles is good. It's Chris Martell. He was very much Pentecostal and really liked to express his enthusiasm for the Lord. And when he was investigating the church, he got up and bore his testimony on Fast Sunday. And me and my companion are holding our breaths because we have no clue what he's going to say. But he went up there and bore a powerful testimony of the Savior and his divinity and his work in his life. And it was just amazing. This guy just was thirsty for the knowledge of the gospel. Now, John and Donna Bragg, they're in the middle. I don't know if we worked with anybody who's more golden than they were. We walked up to their house, and me and my companion, and we walked up and he was unloading his trailer. We walked up, hey, can we help you unload? He's like, well, I pretty much got it done. Well, okay. And there was a pause, and he looked at us and he said, you know what? I think there could be a prophet today. We're like, hold on, we don't know what to say to that. Like, we had no clue. It just totally blew us off our feet. But he gave us his information, and a couple weeks later, him and his wife showed up for church. We couldn't get a hold of them for weeks, and they just show up to church. And it was absolutely amazing. Their friends, the one who's baptizing them and his wife over on the other side, are from Erickson, Utah, down by St. George. And they drove all the way out to Florida solely to baptize these two and confirm them members and give them the gifts of the Holy Ghost. And the bond that was there between those four was a beautiful thing to be able to see. But John and Donna, a week after they were baptized, were at the temple doing temple work. And they have not even looked back. It was amazing working with them. Jeremy, I don't know if you're supposed to have favorites of people you work with, but he's definitely up there. This guy was awesome. He knew everything. I'm pretty sure he knew everything. And he had met the missionaries 14 years before this. And he actually lived in the same apartment complex as they did. They lived above and behind him. And he was taught the lessons there, but he wasn't quite ready to make the commitment. And so many, many years went by, and he moved to Zephyr Hills, Florida. And one of the first days he was in his new apartment, you walk out the door, and two missionaries come out of the door right next to him. He moved right in next to us, next to the missionaries in that apartment, and he grew to be very good friends with them. But me and the elder, second from the left, I was serving with him at the time, and one day we were talking to him, and we straight up asked him, do you want us to teach you, and can we teach you? And he told us, he said, I've lately been feeling the desire that I need to be baptized. And we were like, well, we can help you with that. So it was interesting working with him, because half the time we'd go off on tangents about zombie apocalypse and things like that, and crazy stories. But it was a lot of fun, really wonderful. Ariana and Danny Harrison. Danny, the husband, is a member, was baptized when he was 8 years old, but went inactive shortly after. For 20 years, he hadn't had any contact with the church. And one day, me and my companion were biking. I believe I told the story on Sunday. This is the one who taught us just as we were going to cross the street. Hey, where's y'all's church? And started teaching them. And Ariana, his wife, was eventually baptized. And L.D. Rivard was working on his English, and he was asked to give a talk. And usually baptism talks are about 5 minutes, kind of like my talk yesterday was supposed to be, or on Sunday was supposed to be. But he, like me, is a little long-winded, and took about a half an hour. But he did an absolutely wonderful job, and his English was great. This is Joseph and John Sindelar. John was baptized 2 or 3 months before this, the one on the left, and he baptized his grandson, Joseph. They had the same name, John Joseph Sindelar, the second and the fourth. Those are the missionaries that worked with them. But they're awesome. There's not much more I can say about them other than they're just great. But all in all, I loved Florida. I loved serving there. I loved the people. I loved the scenery. I loved everything. The only thing I didn't love was the lack of mountains and the humidity. But everything else, pretty much, I thoroughly enjoyed about Florida. And now, if you guys have any questions, open it up, kind of. Yeah.
Did you have a mission song?
Not really. We sang "Called to Serve" a lot. but not really a actual mission song. So, had a lot of scriptures. Yeah.
Did you ever have any run-ins with tropical storms or hurricanes or anything like that?
Yeah, we had a couple tornadoes in my last area. We were in the house for a couple days. We couldn't leave it because there was tornado warnings, and not very fun because there's only so much you can do in a missionary apartment, and being stuck in there for days on end, it's especially when you're not prepared for it. Like when Dallas, my brother was on his mission, a hurricane came through and he was able to stay in the apartment and he baked all day. He made eye cares and stuff like that for investigators, for members. But I wasn't able to do that because it was kind of all of a sudden it just hit us. So yeah, I had several run-ins with that. No hurricanes, but tropical storms and bad storms. Well, what?
2 years, no hurricanes in Florida?
The last big hurricanes that went through there was Charlie back in 2005. And I served in Port Charlotte where it hit, and they reckoned time by this hurricane, like post-Charlie or pre-Charlie. And because there were homes still devastated that just nobody lived in, nobody fixed up or tore down, so they were just still sitting there. But some bad ones have hit Florida, but luckily not 2 years I was there.
Did you face any sort of crime or persecution?
Well, almost daily. Knocking on doors. A lot of people don't like you knocking on their doors and bringing religion. But I had many people yell. People throw stuff out of cars as we were biking by, stuff like that. But not too bad. I've heard of worse, and I talked to missionaries who'd had worse and everything like that. So it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to know that it was there. So, and my first area, my very first apartment, I learned that the week before I got there, there's actually a drive-by shooting in that complex. And the 6 months I served there, there was 2 drug busts and a riot right outside our building. It was interesting, kind of shady. So, and there was lots of places that we just didn't go into as missionaries because we valued our lives. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Was the food pretty much like we have here? Or?
Pretty much. Like I had alligator. That's good. I really enjoyed that. I had it a couple times. But really, the better seafood, I'd have to say, because it's fresh right off the ocean. And I've never really had a liking for seafood growing up, but I loved it there. It was great there. So that was good. But other than that, pretty much your typical everyday American food. So, yeah.
Did you have a hard time understanding the language that you went down there? From the Northwest?
It was definitely different. One example of that, I've grown up calling potato wedges JoJo's. You go order a thing of JoJo's. Well, I went to the deli at one point at a store, and I was like, hey, can I get a chicken breast thing of JoJo's? JoJo's. I was like, oh, and I had to think, because I don't know, I was like, potato wedges? He's like, call them JoJo's? I'm like, I'm from Montana, that's what we call them there. I don't know. He's like, oh, okay. But it wasn't too bad. The southern accent, sometimes when it was real thick, you had to kind of grasp the meaning more than what the whole thing that they were saying. But for the most part, it wasn't too bad.
Tell me about all the different languages that you did run into, though, there.
There, just in my mission, there's, of course, English. Then there's Spanish missionaries, and there's Haitian Creole missionaries. There's a Haitian Creole ward and mission, and a bunch of missionaries down south. But yeah, I ran into German, Italian, all different. Florida's kind of, I guess a melting pot.
But they still speak their languages.
Yeah, and they still speak their languages, and it's interesting. I don't know how they do that. We taught one man who only spoke French. That's all he spoke. yeah, he was a really great chef in restaurants and stuff like that. I don't know how he communicated, but he did somehow. I don't know. But there are a lot of different languages and different cultures and ethnic groups all over Florida. So, yes, ask me.
How many miles did you bike?
How many miles did I
The
bike?
longest, or how many, the most miles you ever biked in a day?
In a day, 40. That was my top. In a month,
One way or both?
what do you mean? Oh, that was total. We were just visiting members, and we would draw just a huge circle or a route. And at the end of the day, my companion had an odometer on his bike. And he'd be like, at first we got up to 20, then 25, then 30. Then one day I was like, okay, we're going for 40. We're just going to do it. And we got back to the apartment and we both just collapsed. We couldn't even move the rest of the night. But the most I biked in 1 month was 385 miles in 1 month. And then another month, 380. We were trying to get 400 on both times, but it came short, unfortunately. But, yeah.
Did you see any effects of the oil spill?
Not directly on the shores of Florida, where I was. Not too much, but we heard a lot about it. And people were saying, "Oh, if it catches this current, and goes down around, there goes Florida," And it was interesting. There's a lot of opinions about it, but no direct impact that I heard of. So, anything else?
You talked a little bit about the wildlife. Did you run into any spiders?
I didn't put any on here, but I had banana spiders. I didn't see any of those, but they had weaver spiders, which are similar to banana spiders. And the biggest one I saw was about that big. And at the member's house who had the zoo, all the animals in his backyard, you'd look up in the trees behind his house, and you'd see hundreds on their webs, and all of them were about that big. Just hundreds up there. It was crazy. And he wouldn't kill them. When they'd make nests in inconvenient places where you had to walk through them, he'd just take the web and he'd just go and tuck it up. And I'm like, I wouldn't. You're a braver man than I. But this is the same guy who wrestled crocodiles and alligators, so he's pretty brave.
Cockroaches?
Oh yeah, all the time. Cockroaches, two main types of cockroaches. The big ones, which you'd find and kill, and pretty much were good. But some houses were infested with these little small ones. We call them water bugs. But they were a breed of cockroach, and they just were everywhere. And it was very hard to exterminate them once they infested a house. But I moved people, and like this one family who moved, and I picked up a box. I was walking out the front door, not thinking anything of it, and all of a sudden it's crawling with these, and I'm like, whoa, all right. So I put it down and brush it off and kill them and stuff like that. Walk inside, and there's hundreds where these boxes were, just all over the place, just running for every little nook and cranny. And the mom took off her flip-flop, and she's banging them, trying to kill as many as she can. It was quite humorous, but I kind of felt bad because they were everywhere. But yeah, the bugs is not something that I enjoyed. Not something that was appealing to me. But any other questions or anything like that?
Did you get to go to a temple when you were there at all?
The closest and only temple in Florida is in Orlando. They're building one in Fort Lauderdale. At the beginning of my mission, the first year, missionaries were allowed to go to the temple if you had a convert going through, or at the end of your mission, they made a trip over to the temple. But about halfway through, Area 70 said no. He shut it down because they didn't want missionaries and mission president going outside of their mission. So I was not able to attend the temple on my mission because it was outside of our mission boundaries. Any other questions? Comments?
Did you have any investigators that wanted to be baptized in Mexico?
And went to Mexico?
No, wanted to be baptized in the Gulf of Mexico?
Oh, in the Gulf? Not personally. Honestly, there's a couple that hinted at it, and I was like, let's just do it in the font. It's a lot easier because there's a lot of hoops to jump through in order to do that. But I did know of missionaries who did have baptisms in the Gulf. And my trainer had a baptism And at first they had this spot on the beach all picked out. And you have to go early in the morning so that there isn't people there. So, you know, it would be relatively private affair. But for some reason, last minute, the location got changed to this canal that was off the ocean. And the first counselor, I was talking to him about it, and he said that while the two witnesses, because the witnesses have to be in the water with the person being baptized and the person who's baptizing, and he said he was watching for alligators, and he was more worried about the witnesses and getting an alligator on them than anything. But yeah, but not that didn't happen too often. I know maybe 3 or 4 in the 2 years that I was there that happened with. So, anything else?
Well, did you have a best day or a worst day?
Well, maybe it's just me, but the worst day that I can remember, we were fasting that day. One of the members of the mission presidency, I had gone in the hospital the night before, and as a mission, we were fasting for him. And me and my companion, when we fasted, they would encourage us to still drink enough water to stay alive, to stay hydrated. Even though we were fasting, they told us you have to drink water. And so we cut our water down to the bare minimum. And we probably biked about 30 miles that day on top of fasting. And at one point, we were so weak we could barely bike. And so we're like, okay, we're not doing much good here. We need to go home and before we die. And so I remember biking home, and my legs literally were trembling. They were so weak. And we got home, and we both just laid on the ground, laid there for about an hour or so before the fast was ended. But that was one of the worst days physically, because we were so physically fatigued that it affected your mental and your spiritual. It was a pretty terrible day, but we learned something from it. We learned that got to drink more water when we're fasting. So, a best day. I don't know if I can pick one that's above the others. Baptisms were always great days, and they were always the best. And then being able to see them, the few that got to go over to do baptisms in the temple or temple ordinances, those were always wonderful days. Even though I wasn't able to attend, those were wonderful days as well. But none that really stick out more than the others.
Did your testimony change during the time you were on your mission, and if so, how?
I would say I gained a testimony on my mission. I realized at the beginning of my mission that growing up in the church, being in primary and everything really helped. Because a lot of the concerns, a lot of the things that investigators and members even would talk to us about, the primary answer would come up, and I would do that. And the more I studied, the more I learned, I was able to expound on that a little more. But I really found a testimony of actually reading and understanding the scriptures. The first time I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover was actually, I started it when I received my mission call, and I ended it in the MTC. And for those of you who know me, I love to read everything and anything, almost. But I've always had a hard time reading the scriptures. But for some reason, on my mission, it kind of, something clicked. And I loved it. I read the Old Testament, the New Testament, everything. I read it all and multiple times. And I just absorbed it. And it was a wonderful thing to be able to see how my scripture study would affect my teaching, would affect being able to talk to people, and would affect my testimony. So I guess in every area, my testimony increased in ways that I don't even know. As of now, I'll probably find out, years later, years in the future, how it affected me truly in certain aspects. But it definitely grew, that's for sure. Yes.
Do you know how many baptisms you had total?
I didn't have any. The Lord had several. Several people that I worked with were able to enter into the waters of baptism. But I wouldn't say I had very many. I performed the ordinance for 4 people, and I confirmed many. I don't even know. I'm not sure the exact number off the top of my head, 7 or 8. But people would ask me that on my mission, and I would tell them, none. Now, it's because they're not mine; they're the Lord's. Not taken away from your question, but it's kind of a personal thing that I learned, and I appreciated more on our mission. That it wasn't me; it wasn't the fact that I baptized them. It wasn't the fact that this missionary baptized them. It's that they were baptized, and a lot of the people you saw up there, I encouraged members to baptize them so they could build that bond. And I remember one ward mission leader asked me, he's like, I think one of you elders should do it. I think it'd be good for you elders, stuff. And I said, no, you need to do it because we're going to leave. So we baptize them and then we leave. That bond is between us, not the ward, who is going to stay. And so I would have much rather members baptized than I baptized, because it was that act of baptism that is so important. That act of confirming, of the confirmation of the gift of the Holy Ghost, rather than the person who does it. So I never really had a specific number like that. So, any other questions, comments? All right. Well, I just want to share my testimony that the mission was wonderful. I enjoyed every minute of it. For those young men and young women who are thinking about it in the future, make the decision now. Don't even think about it. It's something everybody, I think, needs to experience. Everybody needs to be a part of that. It helps them to grow and teaches them things that nothing else in the world can. Share this with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Brandon, for sharing all that with us. We'll have a closing song. I stand all of me, 193 in your hymn book. We'll have a closing prayer and blessing on refreshment beneath.
They can't? Are you singing?
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful that we can all be gathered here today for this wonderful fireside. And please bless the refreshments will give us the strength and nourishment. And please bless us all get home safely. And in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
The test, it works.
Okay. No, let's look up there again.